Hey, cutie. Again, we have a special appearance by Ripley Baby over here, and then Bandit, as you can see, is right down here. The gang is all here to bring you the update for Project Level Up. This was a project that was originally started by Sophie Alexandra. I will have her channel linked in the description box below. But this is almost like a combination of No Pan Left Behind, Project like X uses, and like Pan That Palette. So this is a panning project where it's centered around an eyeshadow palette, and the goal is you have different levels, and those levels are like the different pans that you have to hit, or the different bottoms of the eyeshadow that you have to hit, or using the shadow that many times. So level 1, you use every shadow 1 time, and then you hit 1 pan. Level 2, every shade 2 times, 2 pans. Level 3, 3 uses, 3 pans, so on and so forth, until you get to level 5, and that is when most people reset the project down back to level 1. We are currently on level 3, and I'm using my Ensley Reign Flower Moon palette for level 3. I'm going to quickly show you what this palette has been looking like over the past couple months. When we rolled this in, I think in January, we rolled the Ensley Reign Flower Moon palette in. It was pretty new. It did have use in it, but it definitely didn't have anything near the amount of use that it has now. And I even say that, and it still doesn't have that much use. But this is what that Ensley Reign Flower Moon palette looks like today. And I don't know if you can see the one big major change in there, but we do have pan in this shade in the top row called Dahlia. I actually was able to hit pan in that shade today. I want to also preface, because I hit pan in this shade in technically 2 uses in this project. When I look at my eye bank, I used it 3 times since starting my eye bank, but I've had this palette a lot longer than, not a lot longer, but I have had this palette since July of last year. So this palette did have some usage in it. I just didn't track it in any capacity. So I feel like it's skewed for how many uses it took me to hit pan in this shade. But 1, I had previous use. 2, this shade here, Dahlia, is one of those really, really malleable formulas where it can really be flexible, and you push it into it, and it's almost like a super shock where it kind of separates or like spreads out. So I don't know if that is like truly the most representative of the shades in this. It's definitely one of the more flexible formulas, so to speak, where it's really, really sheer. I have it on today, actually. I don't know if I mentioned that. I hit pan in making this look today. I actually have Dahlia here and Mayflowers in this look, along with some Pan That Palette shades. However, what I'm going to do is hold this palette up as still as possible, and I'm going to put the number of usage each shade has. And keep in mind, the goal with this is to use every shade 3 times and hit 3 pans in this palette. So we have currently hit the number of uses on the screen for each, and 1 pan so far. So I'm pretty darn close to hitting the usage goal on every single shade in this palette, which means I really only have to focus on my pan goals in this palette. And if you're a counting person, I have 2 more pans that I have to hit. And I think I have a couple shades that I really, really like in this palette. There's definitely some shades I need to use a few more times. Bloom over here, Refresh, Primrose, Bliss. I need to use those guys. So this little L of shades. And then I do need to use Flower Moon, which is one of my favorite shades in this palette, actually. I have fallen in love with that. Rejuvenate over here, the matte orange. Awakening here, which is a stunning shade. Sprout, which I thought was going to be my go-to Wear to Work to take over a different shade from my Pan That palette, and I haven't reached for it much. And then April Showers. So I think my shades that I'm really, so I have a lot of shades that I really like, and that makes it really difficult to pinpoint which shade I want to pan in. So it's so hard because I'm like, oh my gosh, I could see myself hitting pan in that shade or this shade or that shade, and I love this one. So I don't know, guys. I don't know. All of the shimmers in this palette are so stunning. I am thinking about either hitting the usage in Pink Moon here because it actually looks a lot darker in the pan than it does on the eyes. I like to take Pink Moon or Freesia, these two shades, and tap them on top of a neutral look. It just looks so pretty that way. And that's kind of how I used some of the shades that I was trying to finish in my Feral palette, which looked similar to these. They just offer a little bit more pinkening of a look, and I think that just really goes well with my eye color. It brings out the greens in my eyes, so I feel like I might focus on one of these two shades to hit pan in. Then this shade here, it looks really purple on camera, but when I'm looking on it this way, I can see the lavender base with like green and yellow and gold shimmers, and it does also have this really reflective bright fuchsia kind of shift to it. So this shade is another one that I really enjoyed. I really like to wear it to the office, surprisingly. I think it just goes really well with a neutral look just to jazz it up. Then Persephone is a shade very similar to the one Dahlia I'm wearing today. April Showers also, I'm looking at it and it has a lot of purple from my angle this way, but when you're looking at it front on, it looks very blue, really beautiful. This is a gorgeous shade. I also love these two. These are so gorgeous. This shade in particular, Sapling, I get so many compliments when I wear this shade, whether in real life or my Instagram comments. You guys always flood me when I am wearing the shade Sapling. It's so gorgeous. And then just all of these greens, I just love the greens, but I think Sapling and Awakening are truly my two favorites. So I'm targeting either one of these two or one of these three. So out of these 5 shades, I'll figure out which one I want to use. But man, is it difficult because all of them are so gorgeous. They're all so pretty. So it's like, how can I decide my favorite child amongst all of these beautiful things? But yeah, I am going to be continuing to reach for the Flower Moon palette from Ensley Reign for level 3. I am probably about halfway to meeting my goal for this. So if I can focus on this, and I've made a lot of good strides in my Pan That palette, which I think was holding me back a bit in this palette. Now that I've gotten over that initial hump of like, oh my gosh, I have to know pan left behind this, I think that my usage is going to be a lot more intentional with this palette and a lot less like, oh my gosh, I have to use like these shades and only these shades because I need to know pan left behind this. So I'm going to be able to actually center my focus on this palette now, which is very exciting. I know it's short and sweet, but that is really the update for my project level up. We're not really doing much because we still have a decent amount of stuff to work with in this palette. I toyed with the idea of maybe rolling another palette into this project, but I really don't want to stretch myself too thin with my eyeshadows. I am doing Pan That palette where I'm trying to hit pan in a bunch of shades in my Colourpop shades. And it's a rotational style Pan That palette where I can use a lot of the neutrals with a look like with a palette like this. I have my spring rotation of palettes where I'm trying to touch no pan left behind every shade in those palettes. They're like 10 palettes or so. My Project 24 uses. So there's a lot going on in terms of using my collection right now. So I think I'm okay with just keeping the project at level 3. I know it's probably boring as a viewer to watch, but sometimes panning is just like that. Sometimes you make a lot of progress. Sometimes it's a usage month, and any usage is still usage in a palette. Don't discourage yourself, because if you are using your makeup, it means you are using your makeup. So you're doing what you're supposed to do with it. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know it was short and sweet. Let me know if you've leveled up any of your palettes. Let me know if you want to see me roll in a palette next time, no matter what. I would be happy to do it, even though I do think I'll be able to roll this palette out next month. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're staying healthy, sane, and safe, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!